Sam, what's the situation out there on the Outer Banks? I'm asking you to speak for a large section of landmass, so maybe that's not fair. But
No,
how does this whole snow versus ice versus sleet versus freezing rain thing work out for you guys there when you're so close to the water?
not good most of the time. Most of the time when we get these southern systems, we always look at it this way. If it snows in Atlanta, it'll snow here. It's got to snow in Atlanta for it to snow here. Now, that actually hasn't come true last year. We didn't really get that scenario with the two systems we had last year. But this one looks like more of the classic coastal low 50-mile track difference. We've talked about that. Everything has been talked about all this early week on that 50-mile track difference, making the difference between whether we get rain, all rain, we get a slush, we get sleet, or we get freezing rain. And now it looks like it's going to be a start with snow and then quickly turn to rain and be an all rain event. And maybe we even get into the 50s. And it seems that way. But as we've talked about earlier in the show, as Greg really hit it hard, that the GFS has really just not performed very well this week with this. And the Euro has it much better. But everything has now shifted north and west of us. So right now, it looks like we are in the nearly all rain side of this for the entire time. And then on the backside, we're going to get the cold temperatures. So unfortunately for us on the Outer Banks, that's the scenario. Now, here's the difference. When we talk about the Outer Banks, we're talking about the beaches. You go west of the Sounds and you start getting into places like the mainland side of the Pamlico Albemarle Sounds. You start getting towards Greenville, those areas. And as we get closer to the I-95 corridor, things start to get much more interesting. And that's why we're right on the edge of those winter storm watches that are in place right now. It really does look like that eastern North Carolina, specifically northeastern North Carolina, is going to be kind of carved out in this. And when we look at so many historical snowfall total maps for North Carolina, so many times you've seen that carve out. That looks like what we're looking at right now. But again, 50 miles away, totally different story. You start going even towards, like I said, the I-95 corridor is where it looks like the cutoff line is going to be for this right now. And that's, of course, been trending more west, trending more north over the last 24 hours. And maybe, as Scotty said a moment ago, we get this hurricane hunter data in here. Maybe we start getting a little bit more, I like to call it the windshield wiper effect when we're talking about hurricanes. The kind of the same thing happens here. Rain snow line does kind of windshield wiper back and forth as we get closer and closer. But man, it really just, it seems like we are going to be in the rain shield now.
Yeah, let me just tell people what they're seeing on the screen right now, Sam. So on this Wednesday night at 10 p.m., you're looking at the winter storm watches for all of those counties that are outlined there in blue. If you're listening to us, as Sam mentioned, in North Carolina, that's I-95 to the west. In South Carolina, it's essentially the I-85 corridor. You got to be like north of Columbia. Now, as Sam just mentioned, this could change as we go on through the rest of the week. And these are watches that at some point could become advisories or warnings. And we could also fill in some of these other counties depending on what the guidance is over the next couple of days, Sam.
And also note that, so for example, if you're headed out here to the Outer Banks and just east where it's all white out here in eastern North Carolina, that's the Wilmington, the Newport, and the Wakefield offices. And Newport made a good point because part of the coverage area for the Greenville TV stations is in blue right now. Part of the coverage area is not. That's because 48 hours is when we start issuing watches. And right now we are still in the outside the 48-hour window here in the far eastern parts of North Carolina and Virginia, which, if things are going to hold as they're looking right now, there's no watches or warnings in place in the areas that are probably going to see the highest amounts of snowfall in the mid-Atlantic, and that is from Richmond north into DC and out towards the Shenandoah Valley. So tomorrow that map is really going to fill in. And I've been having a lot of fun playing with this.
You have
over the last 48 hours.
For anybody that hasn't seen it yet, this is the first time I think we maybe showed it tonight. What is this?
This is the overall winter storm impacts. This is coming from the Weather Prediction Center. And there are various ways you can utilize this. And this is available to the public. If you go to the Weather Prediction Center website and click on it, and it's the WSSI, It's a great thing that you can use that slider across the top. And there's a link in the comments section right now that James just put up because he's that smart. The colors all show the likelihood of winter weather. This is the overall winter storm impact. So that can be anything. That can be anything from snow to ice to sleet. It's kind of a generic term, and it's kind of been nice to have this available in the early going because we don't have snowfall total maps, guesstimates yet. We don't have watches and warnings. So these have been kind of nice to have in a pre-storm coverage mode. And as you can see, the deeper shades of red have now gone where yesterday that deep shade of red and almost lava color was down in North Carolina and deep into South Carolina. And now today, looking ahead to Monday, it's all shifted much farther north. But that's not to say that those areas in red, those areas in yellow aren't going to see some type of impacts. But for us out here on the coast, you notice what you don't see anything on top of any part of the Outer Banks. So we're in the rain.
Yeah, I wanted to let people know that I have it on moderate right now. So moderate is defined as expect disruptions to daily life, hazardous driving conditions, use extra caution while driving, closures, and disruptions. Even if I switch it to major, you can see that we do still have a decent probability that portions of the Carolinas will have major impacts, which are defined as considerable disruption to life, avoid travel, widespread closures and disruption to infrastructure. And so this goes through Saturday night, Sunday, and then those cold temperatures that stick around for Monday and Tuesday. Sam, you mentioned the models, and we haven't shown them in about an hour, and I'm going to show them to everyone again right now. Frank showed them at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. This is the GFS, one of the American models. And just to kind of, again, show people the way it's setting up starting on Saturday night is we've got snow to the north, we got sleet and freezing rain in between, and then maybe some rain to the south and closer to the coast. And the big $1 million question is exactly where all of those colors, all those different precipitation types kind of line up. Where does the snow end? Where does it transition over to the ice? And you also mentioned that right now, the hurricane hunters are flying a mission off the coast of California because that, on this Wednesday night, that's where our storm is. It's
that's crazy, isn't it?
Off there, the California coast. So we got the hurricane hunters collecting data.
Yeah, that is crazy. It's crazy to think that, normally when we talk about these systems, it's something that's, a piece of energy that starts in the Gulf of Mexico and then makes its way up the Gulf Stream. This is a piece of energy that here on Wednesday night at 10 o'clock Eastern time is sitting out off California, a couple of 100 miles off California.
Yeah.
And we're going to watch this thing go all the way across the country. And it's been crazy to watch the coverage nationally today and see the maps and how things are progressing all the way from the Rocky Mountains through the plains, through the Midwest, through the Deep South, all the way up the Mid-Atlantic into New England and even into the Canadian Maritimes as well with this one system. One thing I haven't mentioned, we're talking about hurricane hunters being out in storms. We're not going to see any coastal impacts from this at all. I've made sure with our friends at National Weather Service Newport on that we're not going to see any coastal impacts because if you remember, if you've been with us before, if you've seen my coverage out here in the Outer Banks, we've been dealing with issues down on Hatteras Island and Cape Hatteras with houses falling in the ocean because of nor'easters and hurricanes in big waves. And this is the one fear we have and we've had going into the season is we're going to get one of these big winter storms and everybody else is going to get a foot of snow and we're going to get 70-mile-an-hour winds. Not happening with this system. It's moving too fast. It's a short time period where winds are going to be above gale force, 30-plus knots over the open waters. So we're not going to be dealing with any issues that we normally fear out of winter storms here on the Outer Banks.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about life out there in the Outer Banks briefly before we go over to Tim Buckley, because you guys have lots of experience with these coastal storms. You have lots of experience preparing to be on your own for a little bit. And if you do get any sort of icing, what becomes of the bridges? What becomes of the ferries? Do you guys go into that isolation mode?
A little bit. I will give credit to Division 1 and NCD of the NCDOT. Division 1 is what we are part of here in the Northeast. They're pretty proactive in getting out on the roads and getting the de-icing or the pre the brine out, the pickle brine, the Bojangles seasoning out on the roads, but they get the salt brine out there. I love the memes that have been popping up with that this week. But yeah, they've been pretty good getting pre-treatment out on the roads. Now, obviously, they get some criticism because, hey, it's going to rain. Where's it go? Well, no, it actually, when it rains, it actually activates it and helps it to spread out on the road. And then when we get the snow on top of that, it at least helps a little bit. But when it comes to ice and snow out here, everybody pretty much just, there you go. Yes, the Cajun spice spreader.
Not to derail, but there it is.
Perfect for the fries. Exactly.
This is Brad Panovich's X account. I assume that's Gemini.
It's beautiful. Yeah, no, it is Gemini. I see the little star down there, but yeah, that's perfect. We are prepared for it. And in terms of, we're used to the isolation. When we get snow and ice out here on the beaches, it's fun to watch. Everybody wants to go ride their surfboards and ride their bodyboards or bring their snowboards out and not have to drive 5 hours to ride them and go ride down Wright Brothers National Memorial or Jockey's Ridge. I will say this, having been on the Outer Banks as my entire life and being out here to cover storms, snowstorms are the best because it is the quietest you've ever heard this place. Even with the ocean warning, you're just hearing the ocean warning. The ferries, when it comes to trying to run the ferries, they are sensitive to wind. Anything above 30 knots, they've got to shut them down. So Ocracoke does get cut off for that. Ice can be an issue. The next couple of days after this, it will be a little bit of a treacherous for the ferries to run because think about it. They're metal. They're big metal plate decks. Metal and water, when it's sub-freezing, do not mix. That's not a place you want to be. The metal that's the loading docks. They can't run those because they're covered with ice. I have seen the Ocracoke Sound and ice over where you literally could walk out it. I've seen someone actually, it was shallow enough you could drive on it, but there are people who've driven out on it when it's frozen. Those are some of the things that happen here. But the ferries can't run because either the winds or you get ice out there. That is something else that comes into play, but there is something special about being on the Outer Banks when it snows. It looks pretty cool, and we kind of like it because it's probably the quietest it ever gets out here anymore this time of year. But I will say I was in Elizabeth City earlier today. Wouldn't say there was panic buying going on so much, but there was a lot of snow shovels and a lot of salt being bought that made sense 24 hours ago that we were probably going to get 6-8 inches. And now everything looks like it's just going to be, we're going to be eating milk sandwiches all weekend.
Hey, it doesn't hurt to be prepared with all that milk sandwich.
It does not. It does not.
There's still lots of time. We're going to get to Tim Buckley in just a second. Sam, in addition to your work here at the Carolina Weather Group, you're going to be doing some radio hits. Where can people find you out there?
You can find it at 99.1 The Sound, WVOD, back on the air here on the Outer Banks. We will be on with updates top and bottom of the hour as conditions warrant. 991thesound.com. We're still getting things back on the streaming apps. A few of the streaming apps have us. A few of them don't yet. That's in work. Let's put it that way. Just go 991thesound.com. You'll find me there. And of course, you'll find me at samwalkerobxnews.com. I'll be doing updates throughout what's going on, but it looks like I'm not going to be that busy just talking about rain. At least if things, how does they say, if the playoffs started today, even though they don't, that, it looks like we're in an all rain event out here for the most part.
Well, I wish everybody gets all rain because that will be the best case scenario. Yeah. But we know that most of us across elsewhere in the Carolinas are still in for a bit of a doozy. So, Sam, thank you for that update and perspective. And after tonight's show, viewers will see him, I think, again tomorrow at 11:15 Thursday when the governor of North Carolina comes out to talk about his state of emergency.
Yep, we will be here with that.
All right.